Hi, welcome to this Return to Campus video series. This presentation is going to be on short-term coping skills. And this presentation, along with all the others in our series, come to you from the New Jersey Hope and Healing Program. Let's get started. So first, what are coping skills? This is probably a term you've heard before, so let's talk a little bit about it. So short-term coping skills, which is the kind that will be discussed in this webinar, are skills, techniques, or activities that can help you get through a tough moment. Long-term coping skills, on the other hand, are choices that you can make in your daily life that often help people to reduce stress and make life more fulfilling. Sometimes people call this self-care. And there's going to be another video about this in our series about long-term coping skills. So go back and check out our YouTube channel. I'll also put the link to the long-term coping skills presentation in the description of this video. So let's talk about short-term coping. First, important for you to know is that there is an abundance of coping skills that you can choose from. It would be impossible for any one presentation to cover all of them. And, there's a lot for a reason. You really have to find what works for you and what's going to work for you in the moments that you need them. So if none of these seem appealing, feel free to check out some of our other videos. And on our website, there's coping skills out there for everyone. This presentation specifically is going to go over coping thoughts, observing and describing the present moment, and distractions. As a reminder, there were some coping skills already discussed in the opening video to this series. So there was a longer video, I'll link that below, about just returning to campus in this semester. And there's some breathing exercises, for example, covered in that video. So go and check those out as well. So let's start with coping thoughts. Before we get to the examples on the slide, I just want to share, sometimes our brains are really focused on one thing when something is hard. Think about any moment that you had that was really stressful or overwhelming, and how your brain is really good at focusing on that one thing and repeating to yourself how hard that thing is and how difficult of a moment it is. Unfortunately, this doesn't help us, and it only adds to our suffering in the moment. We're experiencing something that may be stressful, and we can just add to that stress by really focusing our thoughts on it. So when you notice yourself having an anxious thought, try to come up with a coping thought. So let's go through some of these examples. This is kind of a confusing, possibly overwhelming semester. So a lot of anxious thoughts, such as the ones on the left, might come up for you. So when you have a thought that this semester is disappointing, try and shift the thought slightly. This semester is not what I planned. It's not what I expected. And I can still make it through this semester, and I can try my best. Right? Like, it might be true that it is disappointing. It might be true that it's not what you expected, what anyone expected at all. And we can still make it through. The next one, the changes are overwhelming and I can't keep up. There very well might be a change every week, right? Like, that does sound overwhelming. Instead, that coping thought might say, there is a lot of change outside of my control, and I can ride with some of these waves. You've kept up with all the changes that have gone on so far, right? So you can ride with these waves too. A coping thought, an anxious thought. This is too hard, and I'll never do well this semester with everything that is going on. This coping thought is my personal favorite. I have done hard things before, and I can do them again. Yes, this semester may be hard. You've done hard things before, and you can certainly do them again. Let's move on to observing and describing the present moment. So this is a different skill. This is mindfulness based. So observing means looking around and noticing what is around you without putting words to it. So maybe in this moment, you might be able to observe and notice how something feels in your body, maybe what it feels like to be sitting in the chair you're sitting in, or something like that. Without words, just really chasing and feeling and observing. And describing puts words to what you see. So it's as if you're writing a novel and you want to describe something for the reader, what is around you so they would have a sense of what's going on. So let's practice this. So imagine yourself at this picture on the left, this beach. You're walking up to the beach. It's the morning. Perhaps if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes and really imagine yourself there. Um, and so you can think about describing using the five senses. So what do you see? Perhaps you see some birds kind of standing around in the sand, or people setting up their beach chairs. Perhaps you can touch. What can you touch? Maybe you reach down and feel some sand, rub it between your fingertips. What do you hear? Do you hear the waves crashing or people just lightly talking? Perhaps as you walk up to the beach, you smell the seawater and it gets stronger and stronger with every step. Taste, maybe you're drinking a coffee or sparkling water or something that brings a taste to mind, or the sense of the taste. You describe it in your mind. And you can think of a few things for each. So I have two options here. One is called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, where you would label 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 you can smell, and 1 you can taste. And you can mix it up. Perhaps you smell a lot of different things, so you want to label 5 smells and then 4 sights and so on. Or you can pick one sense and really describe it. So maybe you're standing here and you're noticing, okay, I'm going to label everything I see. I see the grass swaying back and forth, and it's kind of green and also kind of yellow. And I see the sand and I see different footprints. Like I see a flip-flop here and maybe a sneaker here, and someone was walking barefoot here. And as I start to look out on the horizon, I see the water and it looks blue and it gently meets the sky, and there are white clouds, and oh, this one's quite puffy and this one is straight, right? So you have a sense of how you might go about observing and describing the present moment. And I like doing this example with a beach, but unless you're in a very particular circumstance, you're likely not going to be on the beach when you're in classwork and doing your semester. So let's bring it to an example that might be really relevant to your semester. I'm sure we've all seen something like this before. Perhaps you have started your college career during COVID and you haven't seen something like this before. This is a really typical example of what a classroom might look like, particularly if you're in a larger lecture hall or perhaps a medium-sized lecture hall. So now that we've practiced observing and describing with the beach, think about how you might do this in a classroom. This might be a place where you need a coping skill this semester, where maybe you feel overwhelmed sitting in this class for whatever reason, right? Maybe you're worried that the teacher might call on you, or maybe you're worried about what other people are thinking or saying, or that other people know each other. Perhaps it's just a lot to sit and listen in a place that's not your home after not doing that for so long, or the syllabus seems overwhelming, right? Whatever it is, whatever applies to you, let's focus on that right now and really try the observe and describe. So perhaps you're sitting in this class and you pick, describing the sights. You pick, from this perspective, I might say, I see 3 people wearing red shirts, and one of them is like a crimson red and the other slightly different shades. Up on the board, there's a white background, there's black text. Some of the text is bolded. And, the purpose of this observe and describe is that it really grounds you in the present moment. You are truly only focusing on the here and now, what is around you, what is going on. You're blocking out your brain space, and you don't have space for some of those anxious thoughts that we talked about earlier. You're really just settling into the present. And the great thing about this coping skill is that no one's going to know you're doing it, and you can spend as much time as you need to. So maybe you just need to say, like, all right, let me label 5 things, ground myself, and move back into what the lesson is. Maybe you take 5 minutes to really ground yourself, get present, feel whatever you need to feel. It's really up to you. Feel free to pause the webinar at this time and try your own observe and describe. What are some things that you might expect to see, hear, smell, so on? Let's talk about distractions. So, sometimes we need a little extra boost to help ourselves cope. If we're truly feeling overwhelmed, sometimes it is helpful to distract ourselves in a time limited way so that we can get back to what we were doing. So, for example, if you're in a lecture hall and feeling overwhelmed, you wouldn't want to just leave your class and watch Netflix for the rest of the day. What you might do is, try one of the skills we talked about earlier. Maybe you'll just walk to the bathroom, maybe you'll walk outside for a minute to calm yourself down before getting back to class. So, the point here is that it is really okay to take small breaks and calm yourself down if you feel like you're not making it through the best that you can in that moment. Just remember that you're capable of getting back to what you need to do after. So, some key notes for distractions is that they're time limited, right? Like I said earlier, it's not about distracting yourself with 5 episodes of a Netflix show. Maybe if there's a show you love, you find a clip of your favorite scene on YouTube, and maybe, that 5-minute clip is what you need to kind of lighten the mood, break some tension, and then get back to what you need to do. Because it is important to get back to what you need to do after the distraction. You're in college for a reason, you're getting your degree, and if we distracted ourselves all day long, that might not happen. And it can be useful to have a quick list of things to do so that you're not searching for a distraction in the moment when you need them. So here's some of my favorites. Breathing exercises are always great to have in your back pocket. You can do those anywhere. A game on your phone. I really like this, something like a Candy Crush or any kind of basic matching game that's just really easy. You can play for really just a few minutes and really just kind of distract yourself, get in that moment, and then move on. I also really like having a YouTube video or like a quick episode of my favorite show. I really like sitcoms where the episodes are about 20 minutes, because even then, if I need something long, 20 minutes isn't going to destroy my day. But also trying to find a good like cold open of The Office episode. An episode of The Office, rather. A good cold open might be like a couple of minutes of just like pure comedy, surefire way to put me in a good mood. It's also great if your distraction can involve physical activity or going outdoors. So something like taking a walk, either just taking the walk and noticing what's around you, or pairing it with listening to music or calling a friend. Those can be great things to do. So to wrap up this webinar, I want to review some resources. I will link all of these in the video description. And there's also going to be a lot of other videos in this series on our YouTube channel, all about coming back to campus, acclimating back to school, in a more in-person capacity is really tough. And so we have a couple of videos addressing this, and we're going to continue to add more. So feel free to check back. So here's our Instagram. Feel free to email us if you have any questions or thoughts. You can request a free individual check-in with one of our crisis counselors. Again, I'm going to link that link down below. Our YouTube channel. There's some other resources. So our crisis counselors have created like flyers and pamphlets about a variety of different topics that might be useful to you. So feel free to check those out on our website where it says more resources. And also, if you need extra emotional support, please feel free. This hotline is open 7 days a week from 8 to 8. You can call or text at the numbers provided below. Thank you so much for joining in to this webinar, and I hope you check out the rest of our videos.